Here's a horror story and a historical fact that your teachers, your society, and definitely the religious elite hid from you. We are told the story of a man bathed in light, a man born perfect, a man who walked with angels. But if you dig into the ancient texts, the ones they don't read on Fridays, you find a story of blood, suffocation, and a man pushed to the absolute brink of insanity. If you have a weak stomach, or if you prefer your history sanitized and fairy tale friendly, scroll away right now, because we are about to roast your reality. We are going back to the 6th century to meet a boy named Quthm. And trust me, the horror only gets crazier. Picture this, it's 570 AD, Mecca. The air smells like rot, camel dung, and the metallic tang of dried blood. This isn't the marble-floored paradise you see on travel blogs today. This is the Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance. It's a lawless, brutal wasteland where baby girls are buried alive in the sand just for being born, and grown men bow down to statues smeared with goat entrails. It was a great time to be alive if you enjoyed dying at 25 from a sword wound or a fever. In this hellscape, a child is born, but the history books you've read got the first detail wrong. They tell you his name was Mohammed. They lied. Let's start with the baseline horror, identity. You know him as Mohammed, the praised one. Nice, right? It sounds holy, it sounds predestined. But according to the Sirah al-Halabiyah, that wasn't the name his mother called him. His name was Quthm ibn Abdallah. Quthm. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It sounds guttural, earthy. He was named likely after a deceased brother, carrying the weight of the dead before he could even walk. The persona of Muhammad was a title adopted later. For the first massive chunk of his life, he was just Quthm, a regular guy in a pagan city. And this matters because Quthm wasn't born looking at the sky praying to one god. Quthm was down in the mud with everyone else. But here's where things get weird. You've been told he was always pure, right? Always a monotheist. Wrong. If you think a name change is scandalous, wait until you see what he was eating. Let's look at the Book of Idols, Kitab al-Asnam by Ibn al-Kalbi. This isn't some conspiracy blog. This is early Islamic history. We find Quthm, the future prophet, standing in front of Al-Uzza. Al-Uzza was a pagan goddess, a nasty piece of work. And what was our protagonist doing? He wasn't breaking the idol, he was sacrificing a white sheep to it. In Musnad Ahmad, there's a story that makes the hair on your neck stand up. Quthm meets a man named Zayd bin Amr. Zayd was a rebel. He actually refused to worship idols. Quthm, trying to be a good host, offers Zayd a bag of meat that had been slaughtered on the stone altars of the pagan gods. Zayd looks at him and says, "I do not eat what you slaughter on your stone altars." Let that sink in. The pagan had to lecture the prophet on monotheism. Quthm grew up with the stench of idol blood on his hands. He was part of the system. Most people think he was born glowing with light. Spoiler alert, he was just a guy trying to fit in with the idol worshippers, eating the cursed meat. But this next part, this is the reason you're having nightmares tonight. Forget the sheep, let's talk about the cave. We're told the first revelation was beautiful. Angel Gabriel comes down, gives him a hug, and says, "Read, peace and love," right? Absolute garbage. Open Sahih al-Bukhari, the most authentic book in their library. Read the description of that night in the Cave of Hira. It reads like a police report of an assault. Quthm is alone in the dark. Suddenly, an entity grabs him. It doesn't speak gently. It squeezes him. The text says the entity pressed him so hard he thought he was going to die. He was suffocating, gasping for air. The entity releases him, then grabs him again, chokes him again. 3 times. Squeeze, suffocate, release. This wasn't a greeting. This was torture.
Historians and theologians debate whether this was a test of strength or a trauma response, but look at the immediate aftermath. He didn't run down the mountain cheering. He crawled home, terrified, trembling, thinking he had lost his mind. He explicitly told her Khadija, "Zamiluni, Zamiluni, cover me, cover me." He was shivering with cold fear. He explicitly said, "I fear that something may happen to me." He thought he had lost his mind. He thought a jinn had claimed him. This is the moment everything went wrong, spectacularly wrong. The entity leaves, the silence returns, and for a long time, nothing happens. This is called Fatrat al-Wahi, the pause in revelation. Imagine the psychological horror. You've been choked out by a ghost in a cave. You think you're crazy, and now silence. Just the wind and the voice in your head telling you that you're worthless, abandoned, or cursed. Wait, what did he do next? But here's the tiny detail almost nobody notices, and it's found in Sahih Bukhari 6982 and the history of Al-Tabari. The real reason the story gets dark isn't because of the demons, it's because of the despair. The sources state clearly, the prophet became so sad, as we have heard, that he intended several times to throw himself from the tops of high mountains. Read that again. He tried to kill himself. Every time the depression hit, every time the silence got too loud, Quthm, now Mohammed, would climb to the peaks of the mountains of Mecca. He would stand on the precipice, looking down at the jagged rocks, ready to jump, ready to end the prophethood before it even really began. The only thing stopping him, a hallucination, an angel, or just survival instinct kicking in at the last second. The texts say Gabriel would appear and say, "Oh Muhammad, you are the messenger," and he would step back. But then the depression would return, and he would climb the mountain again. This wasn't a confident leader. This was a man being tortured by his own mind, repeatedly trying to commit the one act that religion calls a one-way ticket to hell. History isn't a fairy tale, it's a warning label. We are told to revere the final product, the powerful leader, but they hide the terrified, pagan-worshipping, suicidal man named Quthm, who was choked in a cave until he broke. So next time someone tells you the polished version of the story, remember the guy standing on the cliff edge. If you want to sleep less tonight, just wait for the next story. Hit that follow button, unless you're scared of the dark.